Broadcasting from the Cass Corridor in Detroit, this is The Metro. I'm Robin Vincent.
And I'm Tia Graham. Today on the program, Detroit needs thousands more units to meaningfully address its housing crisis. We'll look at potential solutions.
And how a new initiative in Michigan can help you obtain a post-secondary education or professional certificate by 2030.
Plus, Detroit has a pivotal election coming up. The person elected to lead the city can either keep the momentum going or steer us off the road. We'll look deeper at Detroit's 9 mayoral candidates coming up later on the show.
This weekend, Tia, it's Mother's Day.
It is.
What do you got going on?
Well, right about now, I have to connect with my mom, see what she wants to do. I usually let her lead the way in terms of what is happening. So if you want to just chill, let's chill. If you want to go get dinner, let's go get dinner. Whatever you want to do, it's your day.
That's perfect.
It's your day, yeah.
That's perfect.
Who am I to tell my mom what to do?
Whatever she wants. If she wants to just sit on the couch silently and not say a word,
then
you're going to do that with her.
Looking at the wall, yeah. Whatever she wants, whatever floats her boat on Mother's Day is what we're going to do. So
low maintenance. That's perfect.
What about you?
Well, I don't know either. I'm just going to spend time with my mom. That's usually what I do is sometimes I'll make her suffer through a meal that I make for her.
My mom won't let me cook for her either, so.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it. They fed us such good food growing up, and I don't know how I'm ever going to be able to match up to that.
I know.
And now we're going to speak with another mother. In the beginning of Jocelyn Benson's new memoir, armed protesters surround her house. It's December 2020, 1 month after the presidential election that Joe Biden won. He was not the preferred candidate of the armed mob circling the Secretary of State's front lawn. The protesters yell treason and lock her up. In the moment, Michigan's top election official tries to play it cool, all while her 2-year-old son sits unknowingly in front of the television. He's watching How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Benson was indeed scared that night, but as she likes to point out in her book, standing up to bullies is nothing new for her. She did it investigating white supremacists in the American South, while she was dean of Wayne State's law school and during her tenure as Michigan's Secretary of State. To discuss her new book, The Purposeful Warrior, Secretary of State and gubernatorial candidate Jocelyn Benson joins us now. Secretary Benson, welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So let's start with that scene in December 2020 when those armed protesters descended on your home. You were on the phone with Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel. She had intel that this mob was either heading to her place or yours. They chose yours. Mm-hmm. What was going through your mind when they got there?
The thing I remember the most was number one, the need to keep my then 4-year-old son safe. So we were decorating the Christmas tree at the time, and I had him on my hip as we started to hear the noises. So my husband called 911 and around 9 o'clock, and I carried him upstairs and started running the bath water very loudly to drown out all of the noise that you just heard that was reverberating throughout our house. And thankfully, the water did drown out those voices. And as I was fielding calls and the Attorney General was on the phone with me the entire time trying to assist, we tried to keep him calm. And I was trying to just project calmness, because as parents, we know that we model the behavior, right, that our kids reflect. And so I was both juggling with this deep fear and uncertainty of what was going to happen. When were law enforcement going to arrive? What was going to happen when they did? Was a stray bullet going to go through our house? And then at the same time, trying to just exert a calm demeanor for my son so that he would know everything was going to be okay.
And of course, Detroit police did show up and diffused the situation. But did you consider stepping back from politics after that moment? I mean, you were also a target in the thwarted kidnapping attempt of Governor Whitmer.
Yeah, I think throughout these last few years. And this was not the first or last time people showed up at my home. We've had bomb threats. We've had swatting attacks, even up as most recently as last year, last December. So this has been an unfortunate ongoing reality for a lot of folks in public service in this moment. But for me, it was a really turning point that night because I did have a choice. And I talk about this in the book. We always have these choices. We can't control everything that happens around us, but we have a choice. Do we run towards the fire and continue the fight and stand up to those who are trying to take us off our post, or do we run in the other direction and run away? And in that moment, I thought, these folks aren't protesting me; they're protesting the accurate results of an election, the will of the people. And I will stand guard over those voices, those votes, the will of the people, that election every day, no matter what it takes. That's my oath. That's what I signed up to do, and that's what I'm proud to do. So ultimately, it just made me stronger. It made me more emboldened to do the work that I was elected to do my job, and to stand strong, even in the face of these very harrowing threats.
Secretary Benson, a lot of public officials, I'm thinking particularly about health officials, stepped down during and after the pandemic because of threats they got from the general public. But as you have noted, instead of stepping down, you're stepping up. Why are you running for governor?
Well, I'm a mom, as we were talking about, of a incredible 8-year-old kid, and in just a few years, in 10 years, he's going to be 18, and he's going to be deciding what he does with his life and with his future. And I want Michigan to be the best place in the country for him to be a kid and to grow up and to call home. If we want to make Michigan the best place to be a kid, to raise a kid and call home, and I think we all want that for our loved ones. We have to recognize we aren't there right now. People are struggling. They're struggling to pay for childcare, to buy a home in the community they want to live in. And as the cost of everything continues to escalate, I know, as Secretary of State, that I know how to run state government well. I've run one of our state's largest agencies, saving residents time, saving them money, making their lives easier, and then getting out of the way. So I will stand up for our economic prosperity on behalf of my family, my kid, and all of our loved ones, so that we can make Michigan the best place to call home. And I'll stand up to continue protecting the rights and freedoms of every Michigander. I'll work with anyone to get that done, and I'll take on anyone, no matter how powerful, who gets in the way.
Let's stay on the topic of kids and education more broadly, because there have been a lot of complaints against public officials, particularly around keeping schools closed for a long time, even though kids were much more protected from COVID than adults during the pandemic. What do you think public officials need to do to build trust in government?
I think it starts with showing up and listening, going all around the state and listening to the struggles, the real struggles that people are having right now, and then taking that back, those stories back with us to develop solutions and then deliver. I mean, that's exactly what I did in reforming our DMV, our Department of Motor Vehicles. I went around the state. I talked to our customers. I talked to our employees. I listened to their concerns and their experiences and their solutions, and then we brought all that together and delivered results. We actually eliminated wait times, cut unnecessary costs, eliminated bureaucracy, and made people's lives easier. So I think rebuilding trust in government is about delivering results. It starts with listening to make sure that we're working together with folks all across the state to develop that vision for making Michigan the best place to call home, an affordable place to live, and enabling everyone to thrive. And then on the other side of that, actually getting things done and delivering results, moving the needle. Which is, my North Star. Are we actually achieving our goals? Are we moving the needle? Are we getting things done? And I think that's what the people of Michigan want as well.
Secretary Benson, did Michigan do enough, though, to rebuild trust among voters who genuinely believed the lie that the election was stolen?
It's hard. We're in an era of misinformation where even the ways in which we get information, social media and algorithms and all the rest have really tampered with our ability as voters to be truly informed and engaged. So the truth is always on our side. Transparency is our friend. We've partnered with business leaders, community leaders, faith leaders, sports leaders to try to reach people with trusted information about our elections. And I think the fact that we in 2024 had our highest turnout election in state's history, which speaks to the fact that the vast majority of citizens know that voting's important, and then when they vote, their votes get a count. But still, those lies are percolating through lots of different ways, and we've got work to do to continue to help people see the truth and know where to go for trusted information so that they can have that rightly placed faith in their vote and in our elections.
And when you talk about making Michigan a better place to live, I mean, the other issue that government faces is that it's really hard to build things in the bluest places. I'm thinking about California and New York City. People are leaving because housing prices are so high because those places haven't built enough housing, and that's true of many places in the country, actually. Do you think the government needs to focus more on outputs rather than process and get into the business of building more things like transit and housing?
Yes, all of the above. I mean, we start from the place that in Michigan, it costs $90,000 to begin to build a home before you even put a brick in the ground. So there's a lot of unnecessary costs and regulations that we need to do away with and streamline and modernize in order to make the price of building homes more effective and cost effective for all of our residents. On the other side, we also have to take on price gougers and for people who are buying up homes or other units and then driving up prices unnecessarily. So I think there's some regulations, there's some revisions to our tax code that we could look at there. So I believe when it comes to making it so that anyone can afford to buy a home in the community they want to live in, which is at the top of so many people's minds right now, we've got to certainly find ways to make it easier and more cost effective to build those homes, and then make it easier and more cost effective to heat those homes because energy costs are also on the rise. And then on the other end, also work with lawmakers on both sides of the aisle to find ways to ensure people can't unnecessarily drive up prices in a way that prices local residents out of the market. And that's just one piece. I mean, we need to talk about how to make childcare more affordable, how to ensure the escalating cost of food for both our farmers and our consumers is addressed. So I think developing a cost of living agenda for the state is top of mind for me. And I think it needs to be top of mind for all of us as we work to drive down those costs and find ways to increase wages. As you mentioned, transit, placemaking, making our communities places where people want to live is also critical to retaining talent so that we can attract those great companies and jobs to our state. So it's a holistic approach that it's going to take to make Michigan the best place to be a kid and raise a kid and call home. But I'm dedicated to getting it done, and I know how to do it because I've taken on big things before and I've gotten them done as well.
You're listening to The Metro on WDET. I'm Robin Vincent. We're talking about making Michigan a better place to live, confronting injustice, and fighting misinformation. Our guest is Secretary of State and gubernatorial candidate Jocelyn Benson. Her new book is The Purposeful Warrior. Secretary Benson, you talk a lot about standing up to Trump in your book, and you give the example of a back and forth between you and the president on social media. I'm wondering, what did that look like behind the scenes? Were there, say, legal threats, for example?
Yeah, there were threats to withdraw federal funding from the state of Michigan based on a lie, based on this sort of misinformation that I had sent out ballots to all of our residents, which I hadn't done. I had sent out information on how to vote from home, which my Republican colleagues in states like West Virginia and Georgia and Iowa had done as well. So it felt like we were being singled out with misinformation and then threatened with a withdrawal of federal funding. But in that moment, that was in May of 2020, I demonstrated that you can actually stand up to a bully, which I feel like that was the situation we were in at the time, and not waver and stand my ground as I did. And I responded back and said, no, this is the truth. This is what we did. And we're going to continue to do it because that's my job. My job is to protect the rights and freedoms and the ability of our citizens to vote. And I'll stand up to anyone, no matter how powerful or how many threats they throw at me. At the same time, it is also just to take a beat and say, this is very strange for the president of the United States to be attacking me on social media. What has happened to our world? and are these threats real? Are they empty threats? But it was certainly the first moment in which I showed that I'm willing to do my job, protect the votes and voices of the people of Michigan, and I will not waver in standing up to anyone who threatens their rights and freedoms. And as governor, I similarly will not waver in standing up to anyone who threatens the economic prosperity of our residents.
I mean, there's no question that President Trump's tendencies to bully governors throughout this country and other elected leaders is quite uncommon and has certainly upset and drawn the ire of many Americans. What about standing up to the broader Republican apparatus that enabled those things? Could you have done more?
Oh, I mean, look, we prevailed in 2020 in terms of whether we did more. It's important to recognize my role as the chief election officer was to make sure everyone can vote, that everyone has trust in the process. So I'll stand up to anyone, whether it was local officials, which we did, and when lawmakers had sham legislative hearings and brought in Rudy Giuliani, which was just 2 days before those armed protesters showed up at my home. We stood up to those lies as well and pushed back and said, this is the truth. We welcome you to look at all of the evidence of the election and its accuracy, and then separately continue to work with Republican lawmakers like State Senator Ed McBroom, who said, let me see everything. I want to look into it and reaffirm, as he did, that the election was accurate. So I think there's lots of ways to both work with people and then stand up to lies, which is really the dividing line. And that's essentially for me the approach, where I'll stand up to anyone who, whether they be the president of the United States or a billionaire like Elon Musk or state lawmakers as well, who try to use their authority to bully others to do their will against what the law requires. But also be willing to work with anyone who's reasonable enough to achieve our goals, which is making it easier to vote and harder to cheat and protecting the accurate results of our election.
Let's stay on the subject of standing up to Trump, if we could, given it's a theme in your book. And I want to discuss that theme related to your bid for governor. I don't have to tell you that Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer has faced criticism for cozying up to Trump during his second term in office. Whitmer has said she's being strategic, but this strategy has definitely angered some people. If you become governor, what will your strategy be when dealing with President Trump and an administration that's focused on maximizing executive power?
Well, I think, you need only look at how I've acted as Secretary of State for that answer. I mean, my job has been to protect the votes and voices of the people of Michigan, and no one who tries to tear apart our democracy will succeed on my watch. And in that same way, no one who tries to tear apart our economy will succeed on my watch. I will not waver in standing up to anyone who threatens the economic well-being of our citizens, no matter how powerful they may be. And everywhere I go in Michigan, it is clear that the reckless tariffs and confusing economic policies of this administration have only driven up the cost of living in our state. People are worried about the future of Medicaid, healthcare that 2.5 million Michiganders rely on. They're worried about whether they're going to be able to afford to buy a home, as we talked about, in the community they want to live in, or whether or not they have to choose between childcare or putting food on the table. I'll always work with anyone who can help me solve those problems and drive down the cost of living in our state. But just to be clear, the vast majority of decisions this administration has made over the last 100 days have really culminated only in causing more chaos and pain. Michigan voted for Donald Trump because he promised them he would lower the cost of living, and that's not happening.
What do you say to Trump voters in Michigan who support the tariffs?
Well, I think it's important to recognize that tariffs have a role to play when they're strategically administered. That's not what is happening here. And more as the reality of the economic impact of those tariffs percolate throughout our state, and it becomes even more difficult for our farmers to be able to sell their product, and our consumers to be able to buy food at an affordable rate. It's going to be up to government leaders, and not just the governor, but myself and others as well, to try to develop a plan to drive down the cost of living. I mean, we haven't even begun to strategically consider or talk about what driving down or eliminating the cost of Medicaid or eliminating Medicaid, how that impact the 2.5 million Michiganders who will suffer if budget cuts to that program eliminate health care that 1 in 5 Michigan adults rely on. So I think my job will be to continue to try to find ways and develop solutions, working with everyone, including other governors, to protect the people of Michigan, but also be very clear about disastrous policies when they come down from the federal government and the impact they're going to have on people throughout our state.
I want to pivot to your time leading Wayne State's law school. You were the youngest woman to be in that position, and you resuscitated the school when it was in bad shape. During your tenure, you described being sexually harassed, and you ultimately chose to report and confront your harasser. I'm wondering, how did that experience influence the way you view power and accountability?
I think two things. One, it drove home the fact that there will be times, even where we go into situations thinking, I got this and I know exactly what I would do if this happens, that standing up to powerful folks is scary. And it does come with a consequence. As I talk about, bullies punch back. And so you have to, I think I wanted to be honest about that reality. And yet, no matter with that reality, still choosing to move forward anyway, because it was not just the right thing to do, but it was critical for me and for others who were dealing with similar situations from this person and from others, to have someone who is going to fight for them and tell my truth and tell my story. So I learned, number one, that even if the success isn't clear at the outset, the long-term impact, the long-term success will be on the horizon. And that secondly, in just telling this story and being honest about it and my struggles, it helps others who are going through similar situations realize they're not alone. And I think you can find power in that solidarity and build collective power that can be strong enough to take down structures that further this type of injustice. And that was part of my long-term experience as well.
You discussed how commonplace your experience was and how leaders at Wayne State failed to act when you told them you were being harassed. As briefly as you can, do you believe higher education and other institutions with rigid power structures like government still enable retaliation or silence?
Certainly. I mean, this was several years ago, but there are countless examples of that happening, especially where you have political leaders who are also seemingly getting away, as the President of the United States has done with similar behavior. But that is all the more reason why we have to tell stories like this. That is the telling stories like this, sharing our stories, even though it's hard, even though it comes with pushback, is necessary to enabling all these drops to build a wave that can take down the walls of oppression and patriarchy. So to me, it's important to tell these stories, and it's important for others to feel that they can have a place to tell them as well, so that we can find ways together to enable us as individuals to stand up to toxic workplaces or bullies anywhere we may find them. And by finding that strength and solidarity and in our common stories, I think it's possible to still move the needle and make it more and more possible for everyone to be valued, respected, and be able to thrive in any workplace they find themselves in.
Secretary Benson, let's fast forward a bit. You've been in office as Michigan's Secretary of State for the last 6 years. You write in the book that a Secretary of State has a significant impact on the health of democracy. In the last 30 seconds that we have, I'd like you to say more about that.
Oh, I think a healthy democracy is the foundation for a healthy economy, for a thriving citizenry. So as Secretary of State, as the chief election officer, my job is to show up every day and say, how can I make government work well for everyone, make everyone's lives easier, and ensure every voice is heard so that people know their own power to hold elected officials accountable. It's been an incredible job and the opportunity to serve people in every corner of the state, no matter who they are, where they live, or who they vote for, has been the honor of my life. And so I hope to be able to still have opportunity to expand that service as governor of Michigan, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to protect and defend democracy at a time when it has been under countless attacks at the state and federal level.
Secretary of State and gubernatorial candidate Jocelyn Benson. Her new book is The Purposeful Warrior. She's discussing it tonight with Dennis Archer Jr. at the Detroit Public Library. Secretary Benson, thank you so much for joining us on the Metro.
Thank you for having me.
Coming up, the city of Detroit has invested millions of dollars to build affordable housing in the last few years, but it still doesn't have enough affordable units for everyone. We'll discuss why after the break. This is The Metro on WDET. Stay with us.